2019 we started all of this in HOMeHOPe, and then you feel like it's so good that it's just going to be the next year everyone's going to be like, poof, everyone knows it. But then it takes time and constant, like, come on, people, shake it up a little bit. So hormones, I feel this is going to be the year for hormones. But I inference there because what I see is this big, huge push of peptides. And I don't really agree with it. And so that's what I hope to redefine the use of peptides, redefine what people know about peptides. It's always this surface level, comes out on social media, comes out on ChatGPT. And again, I learn all these things from my clients. I see these trends come through with my clients, and they come to me going, I need this peptide, I want this peptide, I want to treat with this peptide. I'm like, why? Have you done any of the base work yet? Have you done any of the optimization work yet? Well, it's not going to work.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Smarter Not Harder podcast, your home for $0.01 solutions, $64,000 questions. This is the staff, the faculty, the people that run HOMeHOPE here. We have Boomer, Dr. Ted, Dr. Allen, Jody. We have New Zealand. We have Australia. We have DC, LA, and lovely Colorado with you today. How's everybody doing, ladies and gentlemen?
Wonderful, Scott. Thank you for asking.
You are most wonderful. How's New Zealand treating you this time?
I'm trying to reach your octave. I'm sorry.
Fun fact about New Zealand, everybody. Do you want to know what molecule is legal here? Ted, you cannot answer. Please don't answer for people. What molecule is legal here that other parts of the world is actually questionable in terms of legality? Most places not ruled upon.
I know the answer to this too, I think.
Yeah, I think I do too.
Okay,
right, Alan,
since Alan, we'll single you out. Alan, since you don't know the answer.
Is it used in ceremonies?
Yes, it's going to be my birthday gift to you, actually.
Oh. Propofol?
Yeah. Speaking of trends for 2026, I like it.
Yes, Michael.
So this is Dr. Bukatz's sleep stack. Ready? Here we go.
Yeah.
He's bringing it back to Michael Jackson years. I like
the answer, ladies and gentlemen, is noribogaine. So
I was going to say ibogaine. So yeah, okay.
Yeah, noribogaine. Ibogaine is ruled as scheduled in many places, but noribogaine in certain jurisdictions of the world is either questionable or here you can apparently use it. Although I've never ever met anybody who actually does. So, useful fact of the day. Let's get things started on a 2026.
Very exciting. So we have lots of trends. We have the future man himself, Dr. Ted Achacoso, who's going to tell us the future, although it might be vague. I don't know yet, depending on what.
That's from my famous line to these guys. Like, I have seen the future and it is vague.
All right. Who wants to start us off? Anybody have some ideas? I have a couple if you guys are waiting. So
go ahead.
I'll just give you guys some time to think. Jody, you want to go first? Okay.
I can go first because I can be quick because I say that and then I ramble. So,
go.
So things that we're excited for this year. That's what's coming. Anything.
What's coming or what's trending? What do you think is going to happen in 2026? That's going to be new and exciting.
Well, I think this can be a good starter for what Ted may say, but I'm very excited for the change in the hormone balancing side of things for this year because I feel it coming. I feel it in my bones. Clients are asking for it. People are wanting it. They're understanding a little bit more about the delicate network that it is of hormones. And we don't remember it right.
Yeah, Jody. Well, I've been teaching this since 2009. It's just like,
make things take time. I feel like 2019 we started all of this in HOMeHOPe. And then you feel like it's so good that it's just going to be the next year everyone's going to be like, poof, everyone knows it. But then it takes time and constant, like, come on, people, shake it up a little bit. So hormones, I feel this is going to be the year for hormones. But I inference there because what I see is this big, huge push of peptides. And I don't really agree with it. And so that's what I hope to redefine the use of peptides, redefine what people know about peptides. It's always this surface level, comes out on social media, comes out on ChatGPT. And again, I learn all these things from my clients. I see these trends come through with my clients, and they come to me going, I need this peptide, I want this peptide, I want to treat with this peptide. I'm like, why? Have you done any of the base work yet? Have you done any of the optimization work yet? Well, it's not going to work. Like, you guys.
Well, instant gratification is always a good driver, right?
Yeah.
And it is actually one of the difficulties in health optimization medicine is that this is a rear view mirror kind of practice. Like, what didn't happen to you is what you notice. You didn't get sick. You didn't get irritable and say, let's go to Tibet, he says. You could see all of these things that are being brought to you by your patients and by your clients, right? What about this and this? And what's important here when it comes out is that when you are a practitioner of HOMeHOPE is that you do have a framework. Oh, that's coming from this. Let's do this first, right? And then we can do that, right? So, but the thing is, we are informed about these things. It's just that we know where their place is within the framework of actually, taking care of the health of the clients and patients.
And that's where we start. So my third one there would be following on from that, knowing and spreading this importance, which we're there, we're doing it. There's practitioners growing by the minute, and the number of practitioners that are coming on board. So really key importance of looking after health and looking after the cell, and therefore all of these amazing things within context, within space of where we put them, and within the framework, they're going to work better, and we can actually be smarter about it, and you're going to get better optimization out of it. So I think it's just that really, I always come back to this in the foundations, but it's always that foundational, importance of knowing your micronutrients and your enzymatic support and your cofactors. Like, really, people like that to become the cool thing, the trend. Knowing, do you have enough iron? Do you have enough selenium? Like, well, I don't. Whoa, you better. Otherwise, you're not going to be cool.
How many kiwis did you eat today, Jody? So.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, like, as Ted always says, you teach the addiction to health, but I want to teach the addiction to getting the measurements right and knowing where you are. And actually, like, does anyone know where their metabolites are sitting and how healthy their cells are and what's coming in and what's coming out and what's, exposomics and, what your total sum of your environment is. Most people don't know that. They're just like, I just need to do a parasite cleanse. I'm like, I don't know. Do you even know what your parasite?
Do you even have a parasite?
And that's why we're providing the standard of care for health, right?
Exactly.
So, like, where's your baseline? Where are your baseline health markers for which we could actually monitor that you're actually getting healthy? You cannot ask a molecule, how are you doing today? You have to take a look at the molecule in the context of its network. Like, this has been an argument to me by illness medicine doctors, right? No, you cannot smell an alpha lipoic acid molecule when it's inside the cell. You can smell it, of course.
You can smell it.
Yeah.
You can smell NAD.
You can say, you're alpha lipoic deficient. But this is like the old way of doing things, right? It's like, you're just chasing after the numbers. No, we're actually looking at these numbers and correlating it to the quality of life of the person, right? So, these are different things. And, how do you say that, that your quality of life is improved when you don't have the actual metrics to prove it, right? So you look at the improvements in sleep, in the eating habits, and in the blood sugar and everything else that you monitor when you're looking at these different changes in habits and the compliance of your patients, right? So it's very different when you take an antibiotic. It works generally for about 90+% of the population, right? Unless you're resistant. So it's difficult and different for us because it's by the person, right? And how motivated the person really is. So, that's a good thing. Actually, I think that's coming out in next year, Jody. Is like it's like don't guess, test kind of mentality. Like, no. There's a standard of care for health. We know how to do that. We're delivering that.
But people realizing that, like, I'll forever live for the look on my clients' faces when I explain to them all of these metabolites as we're going through the test, and telling them what they're eating and what they're doing too much of, or this is the root cause of what you're feeling, and this is what nutrients missing, and they just look at me like, really? Wow, I never knew any of this existed. Can we really test this? I'm like, yeah, we are.
Yes, we are, and now I will charge you more.
Boomer's answer always charge more. Okay.
You'll get better results too.
Yeah.
We're knowledge workers, right? That's what we are. So, and you and all of you are better translators of these kinds of knowledge to your patients. You know me and my snobbery. If you don't understand this, well, just follow the protocol.
Just do it.
Jody, I wanted to echo on my side something you were just describing, but I'm going to take a slightly different tact, because we know there's lots more direct-to-consumer laboratory testing that's happening now. So you have big companies that have raised billions of dollars now to create these panels for people to get labs done on a certain period of time. And then these panels are all mostly disease markers, okay? And they get run through an AI system that gives you a report. And so there's this whole new industry, I was just reading about this recently, popping up, trying to help you interpret the labs that you're getting from these companies. And because people don't know what to do with this data.
Genetics a couple of years ago?
Sounds familiar, right? Yeah, the same kind of trend, right? That's a good point, Boomer. So you have all these new companies that are coming up trying to help you interpret the labs that you're getting. But as you were just alluding to so beautifully, and Ted as well, is that they're missing the mark here. They're looking at the wrong suite of markers when they're not looking to optimize health. They're looking to treat disease or illness or find the root causes of illnesses, which is not what we're all about here. We need to focus on that foundational biology, that cell itself. And so you're going to see more people, I think, just not very happy with the labs that they're getting and not really understanding what to do with the data, because they don't have somebody that's with them, that's helping them along the way. So I think a big trend in 2026 is going to be a rebound effect from all these people getting all these specialty labs and hundreds of thousands of dollars of labs, and then some random AI readout that says something, and then you're going to be like, well, what do I do with this information? And you're going to be more lost than you were when you started. So I think that we're very much poised as a nonprofit, as an organization, to be, I don't want to call it the alternative to that, but the foundation to it all, where you come to us, you work with a practitioner that's trained in health optimization medicine, and you know exactly what you're doing and why. And then you understand what that arc is going to be if you focus on optimizing your health from that beautiful age range between 21 and 30 years of age. That's the optimized range that we use for nutrient, gut, hormone, neurotransmitter levels. That's where the foundation is. So I hope, and my sense is that people are going to start being, really fed up with those trends of getting these labs and not knowing what to do with them. That's number one, but happy for comments before I go to number two.
No, please go to number two.
Number two is actually, Jody, this is close to you and what you've been doing and what Ted has developed really at Health Optimization Medicine. I think there's going to be a bigger emphasis on exposomics, which is the study of toxins in our environment and the clinical applications of this. Because again, we are just getting sicker and sicker and more polluted, outside and in, because there really is no real difference, guys, right? Everything outside becomes in and inside is out, right? And as a result of that, Jody's going to be teaching us all about exposomics in 2026 and going across the world, giving lectures about why we need to be thinking about this. And then as a result of that, I think more people are going to be interested in what we're doing in our nonprofit in health optimization medicine practice, because we're the only specialty that's focused on a clinical application of exposomics. And I think about this in clinical care. And then my third is that, you guys are going to like this, I think that hypoxia is the new hyperbarics.
Are you killing your business, Scott?
No. I
Wow.
think that
Yeah.
I think what it comes down to it is that
He's trying
I've-
to minimize distraction this year, and so he's getting rid of the hyperbaric side. And there we go. I like this.
well, as Ted has mentioned in previous podcast, and several of us were in Tibet, on the Chinese side in the Tibetan plateau, over 12,000 feet, getting intermittent hyperoxic training, mostly hypoxic training. And I think that as I've learned more about hypoxic training over the years, I think it's going to have its heyday. Now, along with hyperbaric therapy, I think definitely has a place here, but where I'm interested actually is the intersection of these. And so you're going to see more about hypoxic training. You're going to see more about CO2 training. This is something that's been going on for a long time with friends and colleagues like Brian McKenzie and Laird Hamilton and others, but this is going to get more medicalized, and we're going to talk about more of this from a parasympathetic sympathetic balance, an autonomic balance between those parts of your nervous system, and something that I've finally been calling the parasympathetic edge. But that's enough foreshadowing for me in my deep voice. On to you, Alan or Boomer. You guys can choose who would like to go next.
Alan, please.
Sure. Yeah.
Indulge
I mean,
us.
a lot of what you said resonated. I mean, the AI health boom has hit all of us from the spectra of health all the way in the disease space as well. And so you can imagine if you have people that are coming to you saying, "Hey, I want to improve my health," they are also likely using something like OpenAI or Claude, and they're inquiring, and then they're coming with a whole bunch of recommendations that they're asking us to help them sort through. And so I think what we're seeing is, and we're going to continue to see this. I don't think it's going to rebound this next year. I hope it does, but really, I think it's going to get a lot worse until it's going to get better. In that, folks are going to be more, I don't want to say informed, but we're going to see a continued propagation of this ancient, this anxious, informed, concerned person. And I think what's interesting, we're already seeing this in ER where someone comes in and they, we ask them what's going on, and they give me a list from ChatGPT with their symptoms, and it has a bunch of rare, genetic polymorphisms, as well as, some travel, suspicious infectious disease, tropical medicine issues, and they haven't traveled outside of the local LA area. And so I think what's challenging is that, we're seeing it's generating these really challenging health narratives and bringing it back to HOMeHOPe, right? The first thing we don't do is we don't guess, right? We say, let's stop, we measure, and we say what's happening at the level of the holobiont. And we can't really do that as easily in the emergency department, but in the health optimizing space, we certainly can. I think related to this, but maybe now on the positive side, I think we're going to be seeing wearables becoming a lot more, rather than just producers of data, to hopefully more coaches and helping us with actionable decisions. I think all of us that were early adopters of whether it was 8 Sleep or the Oura Ring or any of these wearables, even the CGMs, it just gave us a bunch of data, and we didn't really know what to do with it. And so we'd either come to our providers or we'd go to the ER saying, "Oh my gosh, my glucose spiked to 300. What do I do? What do I do about this?" And so I think that rebound effect, I think, is now in effect. And we're starting to see that these companies are coming up with better actionable insights, more deliverables, probably with the help of AI. And I think the biggest space that we might be seeing this is going to hopefully be in the chronobiology space, which is really awesome, because that's actually one of our pillars in health optimization. And it's actually one of the fields that's near and dear to my heart as a shift worker that doesn't really have a choice in working in the emergency department. And so being aware of sleep timing, light exposure, food intake, how do we recover safely so that those of us that are
Oh,
working
you mean
those
you can't
shifts—
predict I'm gonna get stabbed now?
Uh-oh. I will say, yeah. I will say
Minority
I might,
Report. Minority
if you,
Report.
yeah, I will say if I were to trend out, the riskiest behaviors where people end up getting shot or stabbed, it's usually, believe it or not, minding my own business, going to church, or going to the market is typically is what I hear. So
I heard
You know,
that.
that's-
I hear sarcasm in that.
See,
don't know,
so the moral of the story is don't go to church. Right?
So I'll just say, be a busybody,
or
Don't mind
create your own.
business.
Just
That's
create
that's
your
where
own.
that's where everybody gets injured. And then I don't know. My third would probably be we'll call it better tasting alcohol substitutes. You know, right now, I mean, I guess if we were to put this in a health optimization pillar, it'd be exposomics, right? So things that we're putting into our body that disrupt gut health, recovery, sleep, also and stresses our cells. And if you haven't hopped on the bandwagon with how there's not really any redeeming effects to alcohol at this point, I'm hoping that there are more.
Unless you
more-
actually own an alcohol-based company, right? So that's a redeeming value.
That might be
this
the
is,
one or
This
two.
is where Alan's kind of tying this all into a pitch for propofol.
Exactly. There's a delightful, milky based, lipid emulsion that will induce you right to sleep. And anyway, no, I'm not advocating for propofol. But-
GHB then.
but-
It used to be an improved drug, right? Still is.
Oh, yes, in the responsible, in the most responsible way possible. I'm sure medically supervised. But those would be my my.
All right,
Hope
Boomer.
prediction.
yeah. Take it over. All right.
Don't do folks. Don't do GHB. All right.
I'm gonna mute him. Go
All
ahead.
right. that clear?
So I'm gonna, speaking of propofol, I'm gonna moonwalk this back a little bit. That was a Michael Jackson joke. You guys are too slow.
It was beautiful.
Okay.
It was great. No, I loved it.
Thank you. 2026 is a theme that I keep hearing a lot, at least in my own life, our team's life, etc., is foundations and going back to foundations. One of the things that oftentimes we forget in this super sexy world of peptides and direct to consumer AI testing, which may or may not be nonsense, is just getting the foundations right. There's this trite phrase a long time ago that you can't out supplement a bad diet. And I think that's also going to be proven true here with things like testing, taking more peptides than you really need or not needing any peptides, and so many other things, as has come true time and time again. Like history repeats itself all the time. And if you don't get the foundations right, everything else is going to crumble. And so what do I mean by that? And I have the benefit of also looking at Google search trends and those kind of things. And one thing that popped up in the last quarter of this year became a little bit more popular was the cell danger response. And we talked about, Dr. Ted and I were on Dave Asprey's podcast a couple of weeks ago. I have no clue when that's going to actually be released versus this podcast. But the topic of the cell danger response is something that inherently, if you ask 10 people on the street, I would imagine 9, if not 10 of them don't even know what that is. And when you're not managing your cell danger response, are you actually able to get all of these supplements, these peptides into the cell to even help you? The short answer is no. And a couple of years ago, I hope we can link to this lecture in this podcast. Dr. Ted did this awesome, basically redefinition of nootropics. And nootropics still very much trending, albeit not as much as they were a couple of years ago. Nootropics are designed to give you cognitive enhancement, improve the health or performance of a cell, and particularly looking at brain performance here. But if your cell itself is functionally broken, the nootropic's only going to take you so far. So it might take you from 50 to 55 rather than from 50 to 120. But by looking at the cell danger response and saying, am I addressing the extracellular ATP? Am I addressing the inflammation? Am I making sure that I'm taking the phospholipids I need? You can start to really build solid foundations with actually less cost and less supplemental involvement initially, to get just the foundations built so that everything else afterwards works well for you. So I do think the rise of the CDR, you're going to see that. The next thing is something that Dr. Schur here, SURE, has been talking about for quite a bit this year. And that's, you had another term earlier, but you also called it like the parasympathetic or the sympathetic spiral of doom and a few other things. But when it comes to foundations, one thing that globally, and I'm trying to think of any sort of country that doesn't average this way. One thing that we're really increasingly getting worse at is relaxation and activating the parasympathetic nervous system. To that end, when we take that to a cellular level, we start looking at neurotransmitters like GABA. And so, the sexiness of GABA it's like the unsung hero or the girl you wish you asked out in high school, because you kind of come back a couple of years after college and you're like, wow, she was really beautiful, but in high school, no chance, right? But like GABA is one of those things that once you embrace a more GABAergic lifestyle or just any sort of element of relaxation and parasympathetic activation, the dividends and sort of the multiplier effects or the return on investment is certainly huge. So that's number 2 in terms of foundations. The last one that I have on the foundation side is for practitioners. And this is something that we talked a little bit about, a few companies that are raising hundreds of millions of dollars and getting valuations that right now I can't see how they're justified, to do direct-to-consumer testing with interpretations and supplement recommendations on the back end. And what the belief of those companies is that at some point they'll be able to replace the practitioner. Now, my personal belief is that they'll be able to replace the average or below average practitioner. And they'll certainly give people access to this world that we'll broadly call health optimization at a lower cost, but they're never going to replace the above average practitioner. And when we start thinking about what makes up an above average practitioner, of course, experience is one, but there was actually a study done with the Cleveland Clinic a few years ago. And this was within the Cleveland Clinic Center for Functional Medicine. And they looked at different practitioners. There's 15 different practitioners, and they looked at patient outcomes. And the patient outcomes were done by what's called a PROMIS score. And they measured them over time to see which practitioners had the best patient outcomes and what were the characteristics of those practitioners. And the number one thing that actually set those practitioners that scored above average in success to those that were below average was actually listening. And so when it comes to practitioners and sort of, as practitioners, either try to grow their business or try to expand their existing clients, one of the elements that I'm hopeful, and in fact, I know it will return, because if it doesn't return, you're probably going to lose your business to somebody else who does listen, is that element of listening for a practitioner. Because one thing that the artificial intelligence cannot do for you right now is suss out, and I use the term suss, I'll probably work 6-7 into year 2, suss out those 6-7 signals, suss out those things that those sort of nonverbal cues, the things that the patient won't say to you, the things that won't come up on the lab test, the triggers for that cell danger response that I mentioned earlier. So there's 3 things there. They all sum up into foundations. And then finally, for all of our practitioners, the other thing that I care most about here is this growing element of community and the growing emphasis on community, because when you increase the amount of time we're spending on screens, there needs to be a sort of counterbalance somewhere of people getting together IRL, IRL, and really just getting together with like minds in person is something that we're going to continue to see. And that function of community is really what we're doing at Health Optimization Medicine in Practice. And in 2026, we have 2 events. One's virtual, April 22nd, 23rd. That's free. So if you're listening to this, just come. I promise you the education will be better than anything you'll get in person. But also, number 2 is the physical event in the greatest city in the world, Chicago, October 2nd and 3rd at the Drake Hotel. And so we hope you join both of those. But I took 4 there. It was actually 2 with a sort of sub definitions or subtasks, but I'll bump that spike over to Dr. Ted to take us home.
Well, I'll take a lot more. No, the first thing that I see here that you've discussed as prescient of next year is actually what I've already been doing. So the first thing I see is a more mainstreaming of our multi-omics 7 pillars, right? And why do I say that? Well, there's, Exposomics is already now getting headlines, the PFAS or the forever chemicals in your water, right? You begin testing for those now. You see microplastics in semen and all these kinds of things that are in the news. So Exposomics is actually there. It's a big thing. The other thing is that, we see basically the huge burst in the GLP-1s, etc. this year. This will affect the practice of health optimization next year, right? Because this is instant gratification type, right? And that's really intended for disease first. We will see that these companies will actually try to position it for health purposes, right? So we still, for me, it's like, yes, we still, although these metabolic medicines are going mainstream, right? We still have, we always have the framework that says, well, use what the cell uses first, and then if warranted, and you're a physician and you know how to use it, maybe you can add these things as warranted, right? So the other pillar that is multi-omics for us is like the CDR metabolome or the cell danger response metabolome, right? So you could see there's the clinical metabolomics pillar, there's the exposomics pillar, and then now there's the evolutionary medicine where we look for the cell danger response metabolome. Actually isolated it away from clinical metabolomics because the clinical metabolomics is just, basically teaching you how to detect and correct imbalances on the metabolome. But the basis for that is actually cell danger response, which is contained in our evolutionary medicine, right? Module. So we could see this, and also in our chronobiology module, you see now the certain drugs are more effective when taken at different times of day. We've always said this about taking supplements, right? There are regimens for doing that, and one of the things that we actually do is a pairing. If this is your wake up supplementation, and this is your sleep supplementation. So, and then you don't do a single thing anymore. Just don't take a single supplement, but rather, you have a regimen for this. And that's in our chronobiology module, right? And then you see a lot more of the tests coming out, these methylation tests and aging tests and so on and so forth. And, your epigenetic age and so on and so forth as we learn about that. And this will be in the zeitgeist of this society a lot more, right? So because of those and because of our efforts, I'd like to say that much of this actually comes from our efforts to actually educate, practitioners about this, and including patients or actually our clients to actually bring this to us, right? This will be the year for a more mainstreaming of our 7 pillars, right? Into the practice, and illness medicine doctors are actually going to be forced, right, to learn the stethoscope of the 21st century, which is metabolomics, right? The second thing that I'm looking at, and which is you guys know that this is near and dear to me, is that AI is actually quietly taking over a lot of the things in the background that you don't even know it, right? So and in the diagnosis, etc. As an interventional neuroradiologist, patients, still send me, images like as MRI or CT scan images for me to read. And what I do is actually read them like a professional, right? And then I shove them in, a program that I actually created for myself to actually do this. That's done by AI. And I said, holy shit, there's actually no difference in my reading. I said, I am totally replaceable here. And then I said, oh, wait, I do the interventional part. No, that's actually more accurately done by robotics now, right? So, but in terms of this and the effect in their lives, it's not only in this testing, right? It's also in the advent of the devices, as you guys predicted. Many of these devices that you wear actually now have AI interpretations, right? In fact, a lot of them have too much, right? One of my irritations now with the Aura is that they have too much stuff going on in your readout. They say, where the fuck do I focus? It's like, just fucking hide everything, right? And of course, my beef always like, you're charging us for all of these subscriptions, etc., and you own our fucking data. I mean, that's been always a beef for me, because I've always been a proponent of the patient-centric medical record, right? It's not owned by the hospitals. It should be owned by you. And then, as I said in our chronobiology modules, like you'll see more patients actually asking, when should I take this, right? When should I take a probiotic when I'm taking an antibiotic? When am I going to do this, right? So, and in the gut immune system, you'll see the rise of a lot of postbiotics, right? That are coming out. I've always been a proponent of butyrate supplementation, for example, those that do not degrade in the small intestine, but rather open up in the colon, right? And you could see this because in testing, you will see that the butyrate levels of the person are rising, right? And this is, we in ELS Med, we insist on this colonoscopies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what can we do in the meantime? Right? What can we do in the meantime in order to check, the health of the colon and so on, and actually take a look at the risk correlation with colon cancer, right? And it's very highly correlated with that. So for 2026, I think the trends will be the mainstreaming of a lot of our 7 pillars, and we should not be surprised, right? There's a message over there, and of course, with that kind of mainstreaming comes a lot of negative comments for those people who actually don't understand what it is, right? So, and who are used to having an illness medicine mentality. So we will be having to actually re-shepherd the perspective, back, right? Sometimes you need to take the gloves off. Sometimes you actually have to handle them gently, right? So, and you will see also, we were talking about worried well earlier, right? So you see a lot of this metabolomic tests now being used, right, to optimize health rather than to diagnose, right? So, and then in hormone balancing, right? Jody, you were interested in that, and now we're finally saying, well, okay, let's just take care of it in a physiologic manner. It's like, this is what the body does, right? And then, where you could see that health first, right? Disease second, right? So essentially, you have your metabolic strategy first, and then your disease afterwards. See, all of these are tied to the 7 pillars, right? So as a mainstream, and people are more and more aware that environment matters. Your plastic water containers, right, and so on. So the things that I'm actually gonna say here is, just a few things in terms of the big picture, right? In terms of the predictions. So this year that's coming, we will see more that health isn't the absence of disease. Rather, it's the presence of balance, right? More and more people will realize that it's the presence of balance, and that's because of our messaging in HOMeHOPE. It's the balance between anabolic and catabolic processes, right? So, and for us, take care of the cell, and you're taking care of the organs, right? So show the cell some love, you're already loving the organs. And then time itself is a therapy in itself, right? So we should use it. When do you give supplements? When do you sleep? When, time itself is a therapy. And as I like to say, if you want to shirk responsibility, say I don't have time. But if you want to embrace time for what it is you create time. You never not have time. Time doesn't own you. You create the time for things, right? The fourth one is make your biochemistry younger before you make your workouts harder. So this is what Boomer was saying earlier about nootropics, right? So there can be no true performance optimization without any prior health optimization. And I'd like to exemplify this. A vitamin B6 is not only good for your brain, it's good for all the cells in your body, right? So when you overclock an unhealthy cell, you're actually going to push it towards its limits, and it may actually decompensate. And then, so you are a human holobiont, right? And we will hear this term more and more in 26. We are going to push it in your faces. And we are a holobiont. We are made up of all of these cells of different types. And we also have various microbiota mostly in our gut, in our skin, in our corneas, and so on. So how is it best to show our love for this, right? It's the way our mothers show our love for us, for me at least, feed them wisely. So remember, you are what you eat. Your cells are what they eat, right? You give them lots of refined carbohydrates, then they show you what rusting is all about, right? So, so feed them wisely. Know what you're feeding your cells, right? And not just your macros. The discussions about that are actually become moot when you actually take a look at what the different cellular requirements are. And this will be what will be in the news next year. It's like, oh, people finally realize that, oh, you mean my intestinal cells are not fed by glucose. So, then suddenly, oh, you mean my heart cells actually are not fed by glucose. And suddenly, all of those that I have been, used to use a negative, harping on for many, many years is, I think next year will be the part, since it's the mainstreaming of the multi-omics portion of the 7 pillars. That's the overarching prediction that I have. All of these actually subcategories of predictions will actually fall in there, right? Each of those will actually have their own set of new realizations for patients, clients, and the public in general. But the trend is now, I think, as I said, we've begun the fluttering of the tiny butterfly's wings in the desert of Sonora, right, to cause a hurricane. And we've begun the flap. We were flapping furiously a few years ago. Now we were seeing that even more gentle flaps on our part in doing this, and in a more organized and coordinated way, right? Because we now have more students and more are actually interested. We see now the shift or the bifurcation point that we have been waiting for, right? It's here. We're shifting the point of view away from disease into health, right? It's like you never know disease without being healthy first, right? So it's just like you don't know light without darkness. It's the same thing, right? So I think that's a thing that's going mainstream next year, is that all of these are going to be put out there in 7 pillars: the health markers, detection and correction, and then the more emphasis on health optimization, right? True, there will be new treatments for disease, but you see then, in the biggest blockbuster drugs like GLPs this year, they will be incorporated into health regimens rather than in disease regimens, right? So you could see that a trend of movement towards metabolic health care, right? Not repair, but in the caring of it even before it gets derailed, right? Or is needing repair, right? So then we have we'd see now what I've been hoping for actually is a more emphasis on the quality of life, because for me and for us at Health Optimization Medicine, we've always asserted that the quantity of life is a mere byproduct of the quality of life. Okay, so if you have a high quality life, then you know that you're probably going to live a lot longer, right? So and we are going to push this message also next year, right? It's like, if you want eternal life, don't forget to ask for eternal youth. So that's my prediction for next year.
Well,
All right, so we're all on the hunt for the fountain of youth next year. I love it. All
we
right.
found it.
Well,
It's
we
called
actually
health
just got the
optimization
recipe.
medicine.
Yeah,
there
we
you
just
go.
we got the recipe. There you go.
Yeah.
All right,
Purple
Dr.
small.
Deep Voice. Do you want to? Yeah.
Well, this has been really fun, lady and gentlemen. Going through 2026 predictions, finishing up with Dr. Ted there. Of course, Mike dropping it at least 4 to 5 times throughout that. The biggest one for me, actually, when you talk, was actually the timing piece. That was super interesting. But anyway, guys and gals, thanks so much for listening to another episode to the Smarter Not Harder podcast, where we give you 1 cent solutions to $64,000 questions. And we'll see you all next time. But don't forget to like and subscribe and tell your friends and family to listen, to watch with us, and all those 6, 7 trends for next year. We'll see what's next, I guess, guys. Right? Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.